All right, so let's find our center. The beautiful thing about our yoga practice is that it's always available to us. Doesn't matter what we're doing, where we are, what kind of equipment we have, what kind of state our body's in, what kind of state our mind, our heart is in. Yoga's always available to you to help you. So as you close your eyes, see if you can sit with what is. This can be very difficult. It's not always so easy to stop the distractions and really settle into whatever you're experiencing. But let's try. So as we drop our awareness down into our sit bones and feel the ground and feel the support underneath us, when you hone in to that connection from that place, let your spine bloom. When you find that opening, let's invite the breath. Try not to manipulate just yet. Okay, just spend a couple of breaths just noticing your breath, how it is today, attuned to whatever the state is that's in your mind and heart and body. The breath usually gives us a glimpse into what that state is. So don't change anything just yet. You might naturally start to notice that your breath wants to change when you put attention toward it, that you may want to slow down your breath and lengthen your exhales. And if that's what's being offered, follow. Okay, so now start to observe the longer breath. What's in your way of being able to smooth your breath out, to come to a state where there is ease both on the inhale and the exhale. Melt your eyes, soften through your jaw and your tongue. You can move your head around a little bit if you feel like you're holding tension. And kind of just try to loosen through your neck and shoulders and skull. And start to widen your heart space and let it be 360. It's not just the front of your heart, but let your whole thorax expand. Let it all melt on your exhale. Start to move into that Ujjayi breath a little bit, where there's a slight kind of banking of the pathway of the breath so that your breath is in a smooth, slow channel. Maybe you can hear the sound of your breathing well inside your ears. And even if your heart is heavy or racy, or if you feel tired or sluggish, or if your mind is full, can you still just attune to the sound and feeling of the breath? Melt your shoulders. Place your hands together at your heart and let's offer an intention. What would you like to cultivate? Can your practice support you? Release the hands and find our way onto our back. So as you come to lie down, Remember that every time you step onto your mat, it's a time to release the stress. It's a time to offer into the intentions of presence. What does presence feel like, look like right now to you? And as you breathe and move, see if you can just keep honing that state of present moment awareness. This is a gift. The more we're in the moment, the more we can handle what's in our lives. All right, so stretch and lengthen. Maybe reach one side a little bit longer than the other. Just enjoy that opening in your shoulders and in your hips. And bring your knees into your chest and let's rock a little bit, swaying from side to side. And let your head get heavy. And start circling the knees, rolling them in one direction. And rolling them in the other direction. Open up, let your knees pull away from each other and then bring them back in toward each other. We're going to get into the hips a little bit today, so let's just feel here, kind of take a little diagnostic run of how your hips are doing. Right knee into your chest, left leg on the ground. And let's feel into the movement of your feet. Roll around in your ankles, wiggle your toes. Breathing deeply. Enjoy starting to wake up certain parts of your body. Switch sides, left knee in, right leg on the ground. Feel your feet move and wiggle. Head is heavy. All right, and then bring that knee back up and let's come into a happy baby pose. Now this is a big pose for your back right in the beginning. So if you need to hold behind your knees, that's fine too. And just rock a little bit, swaying from side to side, just getting into opening your back, but also a big deep squeeze in your hips, feeling that compression as your hips kind of get invited into deep flexion. And we're going to open your left leg to become straight. So hold on to your foot or leg and just go as straight as you can. You might tip a little bit to the left and then change sides. Straighten your right leg a little bit or all the way and maybe tip a little bit to the right. And then let's bring our legs straight up in the air, feet together. Arms can be overhead out to the sides or down at your sides. Flex and point your toes. Start to get a little bit of core in there. You can roll around in your ankles if you want. Just see if you can get some of those tight bands of your feet to open. And then let's open our legs out to a giant letter V. You can hold your legs here. You don't have to have them hanging out in space, but you can. Breathing well. And then slowly bring your legs back together. We're going to slowly lower them down. I'm going to hit a piece of furniture, so I'm going to bend my knees, but you can keep them straight or bent the whole way or whenever your back gives way. All right, once you get your feet down onto the ground, spread out your body, wiggle your fingers and toes. Let's roll your wrists here. Let's roll your ankles. Maybe open and close your fists. And then on your next exhale, pick up your knees and your head and curl in. One more time. Open big and wide through your body. Exhale. Draw your knees and the head in toward your chest. Relax your head back down. Keep your right knee up toward your chest. Left foot on the ground. Cross your right thigh over your left. Draw knees in. So opening up a little bit of the back side of the hips. Head is heavy. Breathe well. Then legs, switch sides, right foot on the ground, left thigh on top, draw your knees in. You can hold on to one knee, you can hold on to both knees, you can hold on to your shins or even your feet. Head is heavy. And then relax and melt that. Feet on to the ground, windshield wiper your knees, Let's go left and right, and feel free to turn your head in opposition of your knees. Okay, just letting your hips roll through this a little bit. And then we're going to stay in the internal rotation for a moment. So knees drop over to the left. Feel how your right leg is internally rotated. Now, if it's super comfy, you can pick up your left foot and put it on the outside of the knee. If that's a little too much, then you can just stay with your knees off to the side like we started. Breathing well. Enjoy the internal rotation of that right hip. And then come back up. Have a moment to adjust. Let your pelvis find its way again. You can rock or be still. And we're going to go over to the right. So now our left leg is doing the internal rotation. If you want to, you can pick up your right foot and put it on the outside of your left knee. Always, you can support things with the block under your leg somewhere if you need it. Feel into the internal rotation of that left hip. Go ahead and relax. Bring your knees into your chest. Rock a little bit here. And before we roll over, just one more star. Spread your limbs out wide. Exhale. Draw your head in and roll over onto your side to come up onto your hands and your knees. All right, so as you start to find cat-cows, see what it feels like to open things up, to feel the fullness of your spine. A big breath in, big breath out. See if you can feel that fullness of your breath that we started with, but link it up to movement now. And then drop your hips back toward the heels, walk your hands forward. Stretch out towards child's pose. Walk the hands over to the left or right, your choice which way you go first. Feel the rib cage open. Head is relaxed. Keep melting the base of the skull. Find your breath over and over again. Just keep attuning to the feel and sound of your breath. Over to the other side. Stretch out through your side body. Feel the dropping of the pelvis, the release in your skull, the fullness of your breath. Come back up onto all fours. Let's find our twist. Lift your right arm up in the air. Exhale, slide that right arm through, twisting to the side. Allow your rib cage to feel the compression and openness in this pose. We're going to come out by lifting that arm back up in the air. Hand down onto the ground. Second side, arm up. Exhale, slide that arm through. Twisting your body. Let the shoulders move away from the ears. Feel the breath move you. Inhale, and let's reach that arm back up in the air. Hand down onto the ground. Curl the toes under. Stretch back towards child's pose with your toes curled under. Just give your feet a moment to wake up, open up, and then find dog pose. Extend through your spine. Let's pedal your feet. Again, come into your breath. Start to find your way into the fullness of breathing. Feel the yielding of hands and feet. Drop your energy down into the earth. Feel the rebound. Melt your skull. Find some ease in your head. And walk your feet forward. Hold in half. Let your knees bend. Wobble your head around a little bit if it feels good. Inhale for a halfway lift. Let your spine grow. You can hold blocks, ground, or legs.
Feel free to pedal your feet if you want to. Feel free to be still. Then release and melt down again. Come all the way up, rising high. Arms lifting upward. Lean back a little bit if it feels good to back bend. Maybe cactus open your arms, let your chest expand and open. And then release your hands down. Interlace your fingers, open your chest, come forward. Forward fold, open your shoulders, bobble your head around. Breathe well. Release your hands back down, a halfway lift. Get your spine open, exhale, and fold again. Step back to dog pose. Feel into that beautiful length of the body. Pedal your feet if you want to, be still if you want to. We're waking up our body. We're linking our breath with the feelings in our body. So feel how your exhales contribute to what your body feels like. Notice how your inhales impact what your body feels like. Come forward into a plank. Hold yourself steady, finding breath. You can always put your knees down if you need. Shoulders are away from the ears. Integrate into the core of your body. Put your knees down onto the ground. Find the earth. Roll the shoulders a few times to let them loosen. And inhale. Cobra pose. Open through your belly, your chest. Make sure you come down on your exhales. Twice more. Rising up. If you feel like different arm placements, do different arm placements. You can hover your hands. You can take your hands wider. See what feels good in your body. Relax and melt. While we're here down on our bellies, let's take our left knee high up toward our armpit and start to just invite a little bit of opening in your hip here. You can be low down with your torso. You can be up on your forearms. So whatever feels good. Have the sense that you can kind of compress into that hip, like you have a weight on the top of your pelvis, dropping your hip into some deep flexion. Breathing well. Okay. And then let's cross that right arm over to the left. While we're here, let's enjoy a twist. Feel your spine open up. You can turn your head that way as well. Breathing deep. Come back around. We're going to change sides. So our right knee comes up. Your body can be low on the ground or a little higher with forearms on the ground. Find your breath. Okay, just enjoy the compression in that hip. Imagine a weight hanging down onto your pelvis, so you're really dropping into the flexion of your hip. Notice how different your two sides might feel. Is this how your other hip felt, or is it a little different on this side? Okay, let's cross that left arm over so you can swing open to a twist. Let the hands touch the ground, the knee leaves the ground. Head is heavy on here. Full breath. Enjoy your pecs stretching open. And then come back. Up onto all fours. A lot of times that hip stretch can, it's not always so easy on everybody's back. So take a moment to roll around, to swivel, to sway. Move your pelvis, your shoulders, your ribs, any way you want. Grab your two blocks in the front of your mat so you have them. We're going to come into a lunge with our right foot forward. Keep your back knee on the ground. Okay. Open up through your chest, breathing well. Back knee, your back foot can be curled under or lying flat, whichever feels best for your knee. You can always pad a little bit extra underneath your knee if need be. We're going to go back and forth into half Hanumasana. Okay, so you can move here. And of course, if you want to bring your knee off the ground and do it the way we usually do it, by all means, if you don't like your knee on the floor, you can do it that way. Okay, breathing well. Opening up the hamstrings, opening up the hip flexors. Having a little bit of mobility. Now we're all gonna land in half Hanumasana, whatever you were doing, and put your knee back down on the ground if it got up there in the air. Hands on the top of blocks so that you can feel the lift of your spine. Drop your hip down and notice if your foot wants to turn out or in. See if you can keep your femur bone straight. Let's take 2 blocks on the inside edge of that leg so that we can find our way into a big open twist here. Drop the shoulders down, feel your breath. The higher up your left hand is on a block, the easier it is to keep your spine open and free. Toes pointing straight up, so a little teeny internal rotation of that thigh. Drop your hip down. Sometimes it wants to hike out to the side and up. Drop it down and in. And then release. Hopefully your knee's okay with all of that. Come into a lunge. Let's lift the knee off the ground and find our way into a couple of rounds of bending your knee and straightening it here. Lunging, grounding, rising, lifting on up. Arms can come up high if you want them to. They don't have to. Crescent lunge. Soft shoulders. Breathing well. Okay, we're going to lean forward, put our elbow to the outside of our knee and stretch open into a twist. You can back off by putting your hand onto the ground and the other arm in the air. Find your breath. And then walk your back foot forward, fold and relax, soften your skull. A halfway lift, open things up. Exhale and melt back down. Second side, knee down onto the ground. If you need the knee up for whatever reason, then you do that. Enjoy the hip flexor opening. And when you feel ready, let's start to bend and straighten the front knee here. So kind of moving into a deep lunge and then into half Hanumasana. Breathing well. All right. Now, when you're ready to stay here, 2 hands on blocks, have them close by to your hips so that you're very upright in your torso and not leaning forward. Drop your hip, flex your toes up toward the sky. Try to prevent yourself from internally or externally rotating strongly. Have a neutral femur bone in that hip joint. Notice if your hip wants to hike out or up. Imagine an anchor on your sit bone, dropping it down. When you feel ready, stack your blocks on the right side of your leg. Reach the left arm up in the air and let's twist to the left. Drop your left hip down, hug it in. Keep a slight, a lot of times we want to turn our leg out. Keep it neutral, toes pointing up toward the sky. Imagine that anchor on your hip again. Drop it down. And then release that. Come into a lunge, 2 hands on the edge of your foot. Lift your knee back up off the ground. Okay, bend and straighten a couple of times. Just get into that mobility of your hips again. Ground your legs in your lunge. Come on up, crescent lunge. Arms can go anywhere that serves the day. Open the chest. Feel your breath move you. Feel the expanded heart both in the front, back, and sides. And then we're going to find the same twist here. So elbow on your knee, bring your hand to the opposite shoulder, or hand on block or hand on ground, lifting up into a twist. You can even put your back knee on the ground. So just find the pathway that is best for your body. Full breaths here. Release and relax. Hands on ground, dog pose. Extend through the spine. Take your feet wide on your mat so your pinkies are on the edges. Turn your toes in and stretch your thigh bones back. Let's walk our feet forward, feet onto the edges of the mat and come down into a deep squat. So not everybody can come down this far, totally get that. You can sit on a block, you can sit on a chair, you can just be higher up. You can put a blanket underneath your heels if you can't rest your feet down. So many ways to support a deep squat. Lift up through your spine, feel the extension. Try not to hunker and round down. Okay, so we're feeling that sense of space. Drop weight into your feet, spread your toes. Okay, now see if you can challenge yourself to stand up with no hands touching the ground. Of course, if you need to touch the ground, by all means do so. Sometimes we don't realize we can do it, so always try. And then once you're up there, big breath in, open the chest. Let's trace down through the center line of the body. Pause here in Samastiti. Just enjoy your breath, enjoy your grounding. Put weight into your right foot. We're going to come into tree pose. So you can have your foot high up, you can have your foot toes all the way down, or anywhere along the way. All right, so find the posture that works for you today. Open your chest. Feel a nice dristius, like soft gaze point at something that doesn't move. If you want to bring your arms up or out or anywhere in space, by all means do that. Try not to let your hip hike out to the side, keep it in. Now let's see what we can do with this standing knee, or the knee up in the air. See if you can draw the knee back toward the wall behind you. Press your foot and thigh into each other, or foot and calf, or foot wherever the foot is touching. And then release and let that foot down. Enjoy 2 points of contact where we have this great ground below us to support us. Let's come up onto our toes and back onto our heels. Breathing fully. Change sides when you're ready. So the other foot's coming up now. We're standing on our left leg. You can always hold a wall if you need to. Feel the hip, whatever hip, or your left hip. It might want to stick way out like this. See if you can keep it hugged in no matter where your foot is placed. See if you can open up that knee, your right knee. Let it draw back toward the wall behind you as your ribs and pelvis face forward. Find your breath. Release your arms down if they were up. Put your foot down onto the ground. Lift up both arms. Find your breath. And release back to Samastiti or Tadasana, mountain pose. Breathing well. Take your feet wide on your mat. So we're going along the edge of the mat now. And come down to a wide squat here. You can lean forward at first. Open up your knees either with your elbows or your hands, letting your inner thighs stretch. Ground through the four corners of your feet. Breathing well. And then we're going to stand up. And we're going to come down into goddess pose. And you can put your hands anywhere that serves. Open up, see if you can, I call this spinning the jar lids, but imagine, when you grip a jar with your hand and you have to torque on that jar lid, do that with your feet. So drop the balls of your toes and your heels into the earth and see if you can drag them on the mat. So the toes drag back behind you and the heels drag forward. Turn some other muscles on. Breathing well. Stand up, standing star. Find your breath. Turn your right foot out. Parsva Konasana. Stretch that arm up in the air if that's what your body's calling for. You can always have your arm down at your side if your shoulders need a different way. Drop some energy into your feet. Feel that jar lid of your front foot, the right foot now. Heel is down and spinning kind of forward toward the inner knee. Toes are down and dragging toward the outer knee side. Breathe fully. And then come back up. Let's turn your feet the other way, Parsvakonasana to the left. Drop some weight. Now remember, your front heel and your back arch can be lined up. Your front heel and your back heel can be lined up. So find the angles that feel best on your pelvis. And remember, your pelvis can turn a little bit. Try to stay as open as you can, but don't fight your pelvis, okay? Drop some energy into your feet. Drag the toes toward the outer knee side of your mat. Drag the heel toward the inner knee side of your mat. What turns on when you do this? And then once you do that, press your whole foot, especially your heel, but your whole foot into the ground. Find your breath. Extending through your sides, breathing well. Up. Turn your feet straight for a moment. Find your breath. Arms up. Goddess pose one more time. Drag your jaw legs. Find your breath. Okay. Spin your feet. Open up your knees. Try to track your knees in line with your middle toes. And now stand. Exhale, turn feet straight. Hands come down onto the ground or blocks. Thigh bones move back. Open up the backs of your legs. Let's bend our right knee and open up that left inner thigh. Back up, bend your left knee. Hands can walk a little bit over to the left. Open up your right inner thigh. Go ahead and find a neutral. Spin back to the front of your mat for dog pose. Extend through and lengthen here. Breathing deeply. Come forward into a plank. Feel that sturdy body. Lower yourself down to the ground. Find your breath. Lift up to a cobra or any back bend. And relax. Turn your feet out. So I would curl your toes under and lift your kneecaps up and turn your thighs out and turn your feet out. So you're kind of resting on the inner knee side here instead of right on your kneecap. You can put your hands underneath your forehead if that's a comfy place. And we're gonna lift up our legs with our legs turned out. So feel the work in your hips. Stabilize with your core, breathing well. And then relax. Put your knees back to neutral and windshield wiper your knees left and right. Let's relax. Child's pose. Settle your hips back toward the heels. Oh, come up to dog pose. And we're gonna move into pigeon pose from dog pose. If you know that's not a good transition for you, then you can come down and go into pigeon pose. If you know pigeon pose is not a good pose for you, you can come down and flip over onto your back and come into reverse pigeon. Right leg lifting eye, stack open the hip, feel the pelvis get a little more free, and then stack again, square hips. Take a deep breath and bring that right foot forward. Pigeon pose. Now, if you need support, if you need some blankets, by all means, grab some support system underneath you so you have what you need for this posture. We're gonna have our hands on the ground or on blocks to begin. So we're up, feeling that length and space in our body before we slowly come down into pigeon pose. Okay. So this posture, people can battle with it a little bit. We all can have, difficulties with our hip, our SI joint, our knee, our ankle. There's so many places where we can get a little caught in this posture. So adjust to your comfort. The heel can be close to your pubic bone or pulled out a little farther. The knee can pull out to the side a little bit more or a little less. Square up the hips. Try to find the balance across your sacrum. A long, spacious spine, rest your head on something. If you're in a reverse pigeon, rest your head back. See to it that you're not over straining in your neck and shoulders to grab your leg. Out of this posture. If you like the transition with dog pose, come into dog pose, lift that leg back up. You can stack it over if you want, and place that foot down. Enjoy the symmetry. Second side. Left leg up, stack open your hip, breathe. And when you're ready, square the pelvis, bring that leg forward into pigeon pose. One of the reasons why I don't usually cue pigeon pose this way is that I think it's harder for a lot of people to find pigeon pose, but also we tend to pull our front hip, so whatever leg is forward, that hip when we swing it forward tends to get our pelvis offline, where our left hip now is in front of, ahead of our right hip. So make sure your hips are square to each other. Lengthen up through your spine, adjust the angle of your shin and knee to whatever place is a comfortable, happy place for your knee. Lengthen through your spine, support yourself with any props you need. Come to rest your head on a block if you're comfy with that. If you're on your back, make sure you're feeling restful of your head on the ground. Try to get the hips square so you're not leaning into your left side. The right kneecap should be flat on the ground. You can have your toes curled under or laying flat. And get the feeling that your right leg is straight back behind you and not out to the side. All right, let's go ahead and come out. Now, if you like to spin back to dog pose and lift that leg, great. Otherwise, let's come into a seated posture, sitting on a blanket. So make sure you have a little support underneath you. We need 2 blocks. Soles of the feet are together, Baddha Konasana. All right, so hopefully everything that we've done, we've moved our hips in a variety of ways. So hopefully we're nice and warmed up for this. Okay, we're going to start in just classic Supta Baddha Konasana. Soles of the feet are together. You can put your hands behind you to support the lift of your spine, and kind of just take note of how your hips feel, how high your knees are off the ground. If you tend to have one knee that kind of can lower faster and easier than the other. And now to get that same feeling we had when we were using the jar lids in our feet, pull your big toes away from each other. Pull your inner heels away from each other. You can make contact with the outside edge of your foot, pinkies touching, outer heels touching, and descend your knees. Now, for some people, their knees just kind of flop down to the earth. I am not one of those people. So if you're hypermobile in this way, your work might be different. Okay, so we're going to relax that. Now put a block in between your feet, the skinny edge of the block in between your feet. You can still hold on behind your back, hands on ground. If it's more comfortable to have your hands in the front, you can do that, whatever works. Okay, same thing, dropping the knees. Opening up your big toes away from that block. Notice if one foot opens easier than the other. If you have one big toe that can pull way far away from the block and the other just doesn't respond. This is all, typical. It's not uncommon. Okay, now we're going to put the block one width wider, so the middle width of the block. See what that feels like. going to now stack the other block on top. So turn the block on the bottom to its widest width. And then put the block on top at its narrowest width. So you have a little spot for your feet to land on top of the block with the second higher block in between your feet. All right, so knees drop down. You can hold behind your back on the ground, or you can hold your feet. What is going to be more supportive for your spine? Breathing well. Same thing, drop the knees. Drop the knees, pull open the big toes, pull open the inner heels, away from the block. You might find some little hidden muscles that you're, not always so conscious of. Your externally rotating muscles, you have 6 of them. The piriformis is the one we know the best, but there's 5 others. Okay, now we're going to stack 2 blocks on top of each other, and you're going to put your feet on top of the second block. Now at this point, I usually try to hold my feet instead of hands behind your back, but you might still be comfortable with your hands behind your back, whatever feels good. All right, so same things apply. We're trying to drop our knees, lift our spine, breathing well. See what it might feel like to try to separate your toes, your big toe mounds. And we're going to relax all that. We'll come back, no blocks, into Supta Baddha Konasana. Hands behind your back. And just notice if this posture feels different. If you've had a little bit of expansion of your range of motion for external rotation. Open up the bottom of your feet. And now lean forward, hold on to your toes. Try not to roll your spine back, so we're still tipping forward on our pelvis. But once you find that length, let your head bow, so your upper back can relax a little bit. All right, come back up, straighten your legs out in front of you, which might feel a little weird. You can take your feet a little wider apart and then just wobble your feet. You can kind of move internally and externally rotating all the way from your femur bones. Okay, the last big stretch we're going to do here is to find a little twist within this. So we're going to have our left leg on top. If you can, take your right foot underneath so your foot is next to your hip. If your knee is unhappy with that, straighten that leg back out. Okay, so find your breath, and we're going to twist to the left. You can hook your forearm around your knee. You can put your elbow to the outside of the knee. Make sure that you're comfortable on your sit bones, and whatever variation of the twist works for you. Remember, we're not trying to, it's not how far you go, it's how you go far. So it's not about cranking over, but feeling the viscera and your breath and your diaphragm and your organs and your muscles do the moving instead of bone on bone leverage to crank over. Shoulders soft, breath is deep. And then come back to center. Before you change sides, try to stack one knee over the other knee, cow face pose legs, lift up through your spine, try to pull your feet out so they are now on the same line instead of your left foot kind of tucked next to your, or right foot tucked next to your left hip. Be on both sit bones, lift up through your spine. If you've got a little something extra to give, lengthen forward without collapse. Heart lifted. Deep breath. Come back out of there. Oh boy, band it off fast or slow. Okay, take your legs straight, rock them, rock them. And then we'll do the second side. So either your left leg can be straight if your knee doesn't like to be bent, or you can tuck your left foot next to your right hip. Get up on the edge of a blanket if you need to support you. Try not to be listing off to the left. Even weight on your sit bones, lift your spine. Right hand is behind you, left arm lifts up. You can either hook your forearm around your knee can be like in the crook of your elbow, or if your body goes deeper, elbow to the outside of the knee. Choose your pathway, drop the shoulders, collarbones open. The hand behind you is supporting the lift of your spine. Your breath is what takes you into the twist. Come back to center now. See what it feels like to stack your knees. Try your best, and it's okay if you can't. You just go with what you've got. Feet are on the same plane if you can manage it. Lift up through your spine and extend forward if your body has something more to offer. If you're already at your max extension here, then stay upright. Relax your shoulders. Move into your breath. Melt your hips. See if you can let all the soft tissue. There's a lot that's happening when we kind of move our femur bones so deeply into rotation. You know, it's different when our knees are close to the midline instead of out. It's a different feeling in rotation than if your knee was out further to the side. So just notice. And then come back out of there. We're going to come onto our back. Straighten your legs. Okay. Starfish your body, stretch out. And now here in a starfish, internally and externally rotate your legs. Just let them wobble a little bit, left and right. And then pick up your knees to your chest and rock a little bit. Just let your hips relax. It's deep work. That's a lot of deep work in the hips that we just did. So let them find a sense of neutral. Feet coming down onto the ground. Lift your hips over to the right. Knees come up. Drop left and relax your legs. If you feel inclined to straighten that top leg and grab onto your toe, keep your knees together, that's fine. So just find the twist that feels good. And back up. Scoot your hips over to the left, knees drop to the right, relax your hips. If you want to straighten the top leg and keep your knees together, you can, you don't have to. Head is heavy. Let your body breathe. Come back to center. Feet are wide on the mat, to the edges of the mat, and just a little bit of rocking left and right with your knees. Let your hips relax. All right, then let's find our way to our side and grab some props. You need to have, I'm going to use my bolster for this because I'm lucky enough to have a bolster. So if you do, we're going to do Supta Baddha Konasana. So stack up, however is a good comfy place for you to be in this posture. I'm going to put a bolster over my blocks, which are stacked on the ramp. And then I'm going to take one blanket underneath each outer hip for Supta Baddha Konasana. Now I'm fortunate because I have a lot of props. So if you don't, there's obviously ways you can do this with your back flat on the ground. You can do this with just one blanket. It's kind of, we've done this before with the long snake of the blanket, and then you put it underneath your outer hips. So the key here is to support your hips. If you're going to have a prop anywhere, it's underneath your knees or outer legs so that your hips feel like they're resting in a nest. Not too much stretching here, so we're letting go of the stretching now, we're coming into the feeling of support. So as you find your way into your variation, however your body handles Supta Baddha Konasana, make any little adjustments that you need. If you need a little extra height under your head, you can stick a blanket underneath there. Sometimes it's nice to have some pillows under your upper arms, your elbows, so that your arms are not dangling. The nervous system wants, in a restorative pose, to feel a deep level of support and comfort. So if you have a limb that is having to guard itself in space, your nervous system will not find as profound of a rest as if you had all your limbs resting and supported. So make a choice. You can even cross your arms over your chest. Lots of ways to put your arms. You can have your arms overhead. You can have them down at your side. You kind of start to feel your body settling, give way more, yield more, release more. How about the base of your skull? Is there a little something to release there? Your whole skull. Feel into your face and melt all the muscles in your face. Feel your jaw and your tongue relax and let this feed softness into your throat, the base of your skull, your neck. Let your chest relax so your breath can be easy. The limbs are heavy. The belly so soft. You can stay in Supta Baddha Konasana for as long as you'd like. You can transition to Shavasana whenever you're ready. And when you make the change, decide, do you want to stay up on your ramp or do you want to lay flat? And there's no rush. You can be in Supta Baddha Konasana the whole Shavasana if you'd like. So breathe your way into deep rest. Again, melting your face, relaxing your skull, feeling ease trickle down your whole body as you get heavy and relaxed.
Slowly begin to change and shift our awareness. Invite a little bit of movement into your body. Slowly start to transition onto your side. Be careful if you're still up on a perch of support as you roll over. Bring your body up to a seated posture. Let's offer the gifts of our practice, our connection to self, our presence. Send forth your love and care. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.